What's up, football world? I am Bucky Brooks. This is the Bucky Brooks Show, and I'm excited to talk about all things that are going on in the National Football League. We've certainly surpassed the midpoint of the season, so there's a lot of comings and goings. We're seeing the coaching carousel full and spin in full earnest. Seeing guys getting let go, like Brian Daboll was just let go by the New York Giants. He joins Brian Callahan as a fired coach, and so we have a couple of openings that are on the horizon. News from Jacksonville about Travis Hunter going on IR and being out for the season, and then a few other things that we want to tackle. But given my ties to the Jacksonville Jaguars, the biggest story today is Travis Hunter going on IR, having surgery on an LCL to repair that. It's 6 months on the rehab and recovery process, so he is done. Number 2 overall pick, a guy who was attempting to revolutionize the football world, being a two-way starter, is done for the year. Some people are going to say that's a huge disappointment. Was it really worth it for the Jaguars given the production that they got out of him this year? But look, man, I think it was a very worthwhile experience for the Jags, and it's unfortunate that he had an injury in practice during the week in which he was expected to be the focal point of the passing game. Here's what I'll say about Travis Hunter and what we've seen and what we like about him, particularly as the Jaguars are kind of building this out with him in mind. He's an outstanding football player. He's one of the more natural football players that I've ever seen in terms of his intelligence, his instincts, his awareness, what he is able to do from a competitive standpoint. You absolutely love, whether it's on offense or defense. He brings it each and every snap, and you can feel the energy when you're down around the team. As a wide receiver, he is their best pass catcher when it comes to natural hands, hand-eye coordination, ball skills, and all that. And it's not even close. You saw him very early in training camp practices, mini camp practices, whatever it is. You saw him dominate when it came to catching the ball in traffic, the ease with which he catches the ball, how he's able to adjust and expand the strike zone for the quarterback, that it became very, very easy to see how he could be a big-time contributor in this offense. And even though he got off to a slow start when you look at the numbers, because he finished with 28 catches, 298 yards, and 1 touchdown, you could see that there was so much more meat that was left on the bone. And in fact, you could see where the elevation to the number 1 role was really going to unlock him and allow him to do great things on the perimeter. Now we have to wait and kind of see how he recovers, see what the plan is as it relates to what the team wants to do with him in year 2 as a two-way player. But offensively, he certainly proved that he is worthy of being heavy in the rotation in Jacksonville. Defensively, he was more in and out. When I look at the snap count, he played 67% of the snaps on offense, 36% of the snaps on defense. And on defense, it was more of a, depending on the game, depending on the matchup, that determined whether they used him more or less on defense. On defense, when he got in there, you can see the instincts, the awareness, really easy when it came to being comfortable in zone, but also had the ability to play man-to-man. And he relished the opportunity to take on those tough matchups when they played man-to-man, even though that's not necessarily how the Jags want to play defense. I would say that in their versatile nickel package, he sometimes could line up on the outside and handle the players, whether it's at right corner or left corner in those things. But next level is how can you fully integrate him into the scheme? How can you maximize what he does without hurting what he does on offense? I think after this year, they probably have a better feel for how to manage all of that. He has a better feel for what he needs to work on to make sure that he's ready to contribute as a two-way player. But I still think, in spite of the injury, if you're the Jags, you're pleased. And you're pleased because of the guy that he is, the football character that he possesses, and how so many of his teammates look to him to bring the juice, to bring the energy. Given a player like that, and given how he was professionally in terms of one of the first one in, last one out, great work ethic when it came to being diligent about not only what his roles and responsibilities were, but putting the extra time in, whether it's on the jugs machine or doing those other things to try and bring his game up to par. You love that. You love the leadership ability that he has in terms of finding a way to sneakily hold people accountable by either doing more and kind of putting the pressure on them. Like, hey, I'm going to do this. Do you want to join? Or, hey, man, vocally expressing his opinion when it came to the team, whether it's, hey, I want the ball, I want to do this, I want to do that. Those things were all done in the spirit of helping the team win, which is why there's so many people in that building that absolutely adore who he is, and they're going to ride with him as he goes through this tough setback to get back on the field. If you're the Jaguars, one of the things that you have to do in the offseason is you have to find and figure out a better way to maybe manage his load on a weekly basis. Can you find a way to change practice for him to ensure that he gets what he needs while also having sufficient rest and recovery time to tackle he's one of the only guys that are tackling the two-way player thing. From a meeting room standpoint, can we give him enough meeting time and enough meeting time to fully understand the playbook and the game plans so he's comfortable on offense with all of the things early on? Remember, we saw a bunch of pre-snap penalties from this wide receiver core as they adjusted to the tweaks and the movements and the shifts and those things. Another offseason to really dig into the playbook and dig into the process. He should clean up those issues and be a much better player in year 2. If you're the Jaguars, you gave up a lot to get him. You hate not being able to have your top 5 pick in the mix and kind of impacting the game like you anticipated. But I would say when you made the move, you drafted character over talent. Now you got to trust that the football character is going to win out. He's going to come back a better version of number 12 than we saw his rookie season. And the version that we saw wasn't too bad. Speaking about not being too bad, I wish that I could say the Giants weren't too bad and they were still able to say that Brian Daboll is the coach and that he and Jackson Dart were teaming up to resurrect a franchise that's been downtrodden for the last few years. But that's not the case. The New York Giants on Monday fired Brian Daboll. They fired him in the midst of the third straight season in which they started out with a 2-8 mark. The last 3 years, after a great playoff run his first season, last 3 years he's been 11-33. Not a great record for a guy who is regarded as really a creative offensive mind and someone who won a coach of the year based on his ability to lead the Giants into the postseason with Daniel Jones. Did a great job doing that year, finding a way to teach his team how to play complementary football. He has Saquon Barkley as a centerpiece, but Daniel Jones played really well, and they used all the weapons that were available. Since that point, the roster conceivably has improved in terms of the talent brought in, but the win totals have gone down. And first, you typically look at the players and like, man, do we have enough good players? And then if you deem that you have enough good players, do we have an issue with the scheme, the call sheet, some of the things that are going on? I would say with Daboll, what has happened is, one, setting the stage a couple of years ago, he got into it with Wink Martindale, his then defensive coordinator. Wink had done a pretty good job with that defense, found a way to really unlock Dexter Lawrence as a pass rusher, did some creative things to keep this defense humming at a high level. And, man, they got after it. They had some saltiness, some nastiness, some things that reflected the city and the state of New York. They had all that NYC feel about them because they were gritty. Wasn't always pretty, but you knew what you were getting when they were coming to town. Now, the thing is, when you made a decision to move from Wink Martindale, you bring Shane Bowen in and you hand him the keys to the defense, and the defense is underperforming. You also, which isn't necessarily him, but you have some really talented guys walk out the door. And without being able to replicate some of the defensive dominance that has always been a part of the franchise, it makes it hard to also struggle on offense when the offense is your baby, but your baby and the defense are both struggling at the same time. In the end, people will point to, man, did they make the wrong decision when it came to Saquon Barkley? Yes. Did they make some other decisions with guys that left out the building like Xavier McKinney and some of the other free agents that have landed elsewhere? Yeah, because those guys were good players, and it really hurt them not being able to replace them with impact players. The reason why people say, well, why did they let go of Brian Daboll but keep Joe Shane? And I'll say that if you're ownership and you're looking at the roster and you're just going on a talent assessment, the talent is certainly there. I mean, when you pick early in the draft, like you get a better swing at some of the top players. And so your roster overall should improve. So you can't knock Joe Shane for that. And then you have to figure out who signed off on whom when it comes to the draft and free agency and those things. And if you're Brian Daboll and you get caught with the short end of the stick, they move on from you and they keep the general manager because they Bleav he can find the next the next coach that can get the most out the quarterback. Only the Giants know which one of the brain trusts, Daboll and Shane, really wanted Jackson Dart, but it doesn't matter because he's here and there. And so the personnel department gets to claim him. More importantly, they get to find out who's going to be the next person to touch him and help him become the player that everyone wants to see. And so when you look at it right now, you have interim head coach, which is Mike Kafka, lifer when it comes to the National Football League as a player, now as a coach, a guy who has been the play caller a couple of different times throughout his tenure with the Giants, but he's the one who was tasked with calling the plays for Dart this year. And so he comes in probably with a fresh set of ideas, maybe a tweaked approach in terms of how to unlock this offense without some notable skill players. It'd be interesting to see what he does when given full authority to do whatever he wants to do with his offense. Look for the changes and look for the changes to potentially have an impact on how the Giants brass views this position going forward. When you think about some of the other candidates that have been mentioned, look, everyone's going to talk about the hot coordinators and those things. Some of those guys have ties where you can see it make sense. Like you see Jesse Minter kind of having an opportunity because his dad has been a bit of a coaching legend. They kind of know some of the people. There's all these things that can make it work. And when you look to Pacific Northwest and you see Mike McDonald, who served in the same capacity as Jesse Minter, you see Mike McDonald go to Seattle and have success in year 2, like right away. You may be of the belief that maybe it's a younger voice who has a plan, who's been around success at a high level. Maybe he can come in and teach these guys how to win. We'll see. But that's the case for Jesse Minter. The other guys that you're talking about, some of them have direct ties to the organization, which is always important because those guys know what things mean to certain people and they can make sure that they're always on it when it comes to those things. So when I think about the guys who used to be tied and attached to the Giants, the names that come to mind it's 3 of them. Steve Spagnuolo, current defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. The guy's done a great job in the midst of their Super Bowl tour. He lines them up, gets them set, does that, challenges guys, doesn't back down. He brings a level of energy and effort and toughness to the thing. Love it. You think about Bill Belichick and what Belichick wants to do. Old school coach, worked with Bill Parcells, knows what it's like in the heyday, knows the history of the franchise, knows what they're about, and also knows when they've been at their best, the style of play that has served them well, regardless of who they bring in. Remember, he had this heartbroken a couple times by the Giants, and he's also issued some heartbreaks with the Giants. So he knows that organization better than anybody when it comes to their championship pedigree, the championship blueprint formula, whatever leads them to feel the confetti falling on their shoulders. You got to love that. The wild card of the group of people that are associated with the Giants will be Antonio Pierce. The reason why Pierce has that is because he is a mythical figure. He is a hero in that city. He did have a run where he had 3 straight seasons with well over 100 tackles. He did a great job of being a part of a team that won a Super Bowl. He has some head coaching experience, even though people look at the bottom line for last year and put that on him. You can look this year and say, yeah, maybe it wasn't just the coaching staff that led to some of the issues that showed up. In Pierce, you have a lifer, a great communicator, a Tom Coughlin disciple, descendant, a lot of similarities in terms of how they get down with the team. He is interesting, at least because the former player making a transition. And if anybody knows that building, it's definitely going to be AP because AP has been there. He's done it. He's done it at a high level, and he's done it with a bunch of different people. So he understands how to navigate some of those walls that could hinder or block his path when it comes to being the head coach. A couple other guys that you want to keep an eye on. Robert Saleh is mentioned because I Bleav that this is a job that you don't want to necessarily have a first-time guy trying to figure it out. They're on the win now clock, and though no one said, everyone feels it. They need to get some of these dubs right away. They can't continue to give up games that are there. Robert Saleh might be able to help him with that because he can maximize what they do on defense with that front four. If that front four is solid, playing traditional quarters or cover 3 behind it should help them eliminate the big plays. And then everyone is playing fast and free at a defense that's really built from front to back. If the front plays at a high will, it's going to help the back end hold their own. You know what it is. You know what the drill. That's why it is a very interesting job when it comes to Brian Daboll losing the Giants job and opening back up. A couple other guys that I mentioned, Clint Kubiak, offensive coordinator from Seattle Seahawks, done a great job with Sam Darnold. You think about what Sam Darnold was and what he has been, particularly the last 2 years, and then really this season. Man, there's a lot of growth in this game. We can talk about guys continue to get better in years 7, 8, 9. He is one of those guys that continues to get better and better as we go. Let's now transition. And let's transition to one of my favorite things when it comes to is let's talk about Matthew Stafford. And let's talk about Matthew Stafford for MVP. And the reason why I want to talk about Matthew Stafford for MVP is because at a time when we've decided that the MVP award is for the quarterback with the gaudiest stats or the quarterback with the most wins on the best team who has been a part of it, I want to say that Matthew Stafford defies all of that logic, even though his numbers are great and his team is also fantastic. The reason why Matthew Stafford deserves MVP consideration is because the value that he brings to the team. This team is terrific. It's talented. It has a great coach in Sean McVay. Matthew Stafford is up there when it comes to the numbers. 67.1 completion rate, 2,427 yards, 25 touchdowns, most in the National Football League, only 2 interceptions, and a 114.8 passer rating. Those numbers are certainly worthy of him being up there. I think it goes beyond the stat sheet as to why there's this campaign and this drumbeat for Matthew Stafford to win the MVP award. When you look at the Rams are uniquely qualified to beat any and every team on their schedule. They have a versatility about them on offense where, man, they can line up and punch you in the mouth with the running game. They can throw off play action to complement that smash mouth rushing attack, but they also can drop back and just get it done with him being a dart thrower. And I don't know if there is a more talented passer in the league than Matthew Stafford. And the reason why I say that is just watch him throw. He drops dime after dime weekly, all the time. No look passes on the money. And when you think about what they're able to do, they're able to run their offense and use various iterations of their offense because Matthew Stafford has now reached a point where he can push you and throw it over the top. He's disciplined and patient enough to take the check down. He'll work the field horizontally while simultaneously taking vertical shots. He can do it off play action. He can give it to you however he needs to give it to you to torture defense. When I watched him against the San Francisco 49ers, which was a masterful performance, they used 13 personnel, 1 back, 3 tight ends, 1 wide receiver. He had every big tight end for a big pass. He manipulated the defense because they kept changing formations. He kept taking the easy layup because the San Francisco 49ers and other teams have not had an answer for this personnel package. And he deals and deals and deals. It's almost like going to Vegas playing blackjack and the house is just whipping you because the dealer understands how to get the cards out. And no matter how much hope and optimism you have, you always find a way to be on the losing end of a bad hand. That's what Matthew Stafford has done for the Rams. And the thing that has really helped change the narrative around his game, because you got to remember, he came in as number 1 overall pick, went to Detroit, had a losing record in Detroit. And even though he would have these great individual flashes and moments, you wonder, could Matthew Stafford ever win at a high level? Lo and behold, he joins the Rams. The Rams go immediately right away to the Super Bowl. They win in impressive fashion. He does it doing a bunch of different things that makes us appreciate his talent. No-look passes, tight window throws, just the ability to layer throws over the second level, but in front of the third level, all those things that he does on a weekly basis. He does it, and it's impressive. But now he's a part of a winner, and more importantly, he's a part of a team that is led by a brilliant schemer in Sean McVay. And when I look at the Rams, and I wish that I could say that they're the most talented team because normally when you have the quarterback, you have the most talent, man, you just kind of celebrate all the things that are. But I'm saying, not that Matthew Stafford is doing the most with the least, but I'm saying he's doing it with the squad that probably would rate at B+ or so, not necessarily A when it just comes down to player for player, talent for talent. But because he is so good and because the X's and O's are so good, they're able to take guys that aren't quite A's and play at a B+, A- level. When I think about Puka Nacua, who is terrific, but remember, Puka Nacua was a later round pick, a day 3 pick. Devontae Adams was seemingly on the downside of his career the last time we saw him in Vegas. And even though he had a little spark in New York, we still didn't know that he still had it. Devontae Adams has 9 touchdowns this year. Puka Nacua continues to do what he does. Those two guys command and get all the attention on the balls. They're running the football effectively with Kyren Williams. And the maestro behind it all is Matthew Stafford. So when we think about success and value and what matters in this game, Matthew Stafford's presence has elevated the Rams to the point where they are not only a contender, but they're kind of the team that a lot of people feel like will be the last one standing when it's all said and done. And I know, before you come at me and before you blow up my thing or whatever, you talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and their back-to-back and all those things, I'm going to say this. I think the Rams believe that if they face the Eagles again, part 2 of that matchup, they win, not because of the flukiness of how the first matchup ended, but because they have a better version of this offense that's on the horizon. And with the quarterback that they have in Matthew Stafford, they 100% that they believe that they can get it done. Now, before I transition to the last thing, I got to talk to you about these odds on FanDuel Sportsbook. And I've talked about a few different teams. I've talked about the New York Giants being able to get it done. And the New York Giants, like, all hope isn't lost. Like, if anything, you're hoping for the number 1 pick, but do you really want that pick? I don't know. But I do know that the over on the Giants wins total is plus 4.5, and it's paying off at minus 120. It doesn't seem like a lot of people believe that they can get to that number, but I don't know. It's a number that I would take because there's certainly some wins on their schedule that are available. There's going to be a little jolt of energy after the coaching change. They're sitting at 2. That means we only got to get 3 to get above that number. I'm going to go with them. I'm going to say that they get above the over. And then I'm looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars. A lot of disappointment with Travis Hunter. The over win total is 9.5. Can they get over that? When I talk in Jacksonville, I talk about the magic number being 10 because most coaches will tell you if you get to 10 wins, that'll typically get you in each and every season when it comes to postseason play. 9.5 right now is paying off at plus 135. The Jags are sitting at 4. They should be sitting at 6. It is what it is. So the one they give up, they got to get back. Maybe they get it back this weekend against the Chargers. But right now, over 9.5, given their schedule at the end, no disrespect for the teams that I mentioned. 2 games against the Titans, 1 game against the Jets. You got the Cardinals on the schedule. You got 2 games against the Colts where maybe you can get a split. The Colts haven't won down in Jacksonville in a long time. To me, it looks good for the Jags, not only to surpass the total, but to claim a playoff berth. I'm rock with the Jags. I think they can get that. Make sure you check all that out on FanDuel Sportsbook. Final thing, let's talk about Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers sitting at 5-3-1, had a disappointing loss on Monday night to the Philadelphia Eagles, 10-7 game. And I'll tell you, being a former defensive back on those Packers teams, if you hold the opponent to 10 points, that should be a win all day, every day. The fact that the Packers lost is extremely disappointing to their defense because the defense is balling out of control. Jeff Hafley, who I didn't mention for the Giants job, he is certainly going to be a head coaching candidate. He's done a great job with that defense. The Packers defense looks title ready. They look good enough to spark a title run. The offense is the issue, and I don't think that is what we expected heading into the year. Heading into the season, we thought Josh Jacobs, a guy who's been a rushing champ, would be able to steady the offense. They would maybe do some things like Philadelphia where you have the running back kind of paving the way while the quarterback is playing efficient, effective football that would get him in the conversation as the MVP. And it certainly hasn't happened. Jordan Love has had some bad throws that sometimes have been interceptions. The decisions sometimes in the red zone haven't consistently been the best, but when you look at the stat line, it's been good enough. 68.9% completion rate, 2,200 plus yards, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, passer rating 103. That's if this was a grade in class, you'd give him like a B, almost a B plus. But what's lacking from the Packers are the explosive elements of the passing game that you expected to see, the dynamic wide receiver core, the play from the pass catchers that we anticipated has not been there. And before we get to it, people are talking about the injuries, and I know that Jaden Reed went out early. Christian Watson is trying to come back and still trying to figure out how he feels, get his sea legs up under him. You have a recent season-ending injury to Tucker Kraft, who was balling out of control prior to the injury. Romeo Doubs went out. Romeo Doubs went out last game at halftime with a chest injury. And then you got Elton Jenkins dealing with another injury. So the team isn't quite the same, but this is where the coaching has to come in. And in coaching, Matt LaFleur has to figure out a way to take this offense and whatever junk pieces he has to put together a masterpiece, because that defense, you're wasting a Super Bowl level defense is being wasted because the offense is up and down. And they've given away winnable games that should have been easy wins, or wins that were games that were already chalked up on the schedule that these should have been done, namely Cleveland Browns, Carolina Panthers. You're not supposed to lose to those teams. You have a tie against the Cowboys that shouldn't happen. And so you wonder, does this team have the competitive mindset, the championship mindset to be able to get it done? And can Jordan Love get them going? And I know we always talk about the quarterbacks and we revere them in a way that like we used to celebrate John Wayne in cowboy movies, that they're going to come in and save the day. But Jordan Love, at the level that he's at compensation-wise and how he's played throughout his career, there is a sense that he can and should be doing more to make sure this team gets into the winner's circle. I would say, yeah, that is true. He needs to make these throws. He needs to make these plays to get this team over the top. Josh Jacobs is pleading to be a bigger part of the offense, but he also knows they got to lift the blanket on the offense so they can unlock the box and he can have more room. Well, the only way you're going to do it is your quarterback has to be more efficient and effective and punish these teams for loading up the box or playing man-to-man or doing some of the tactics that teams are doing to slow down this Packers attack. Until Jordan Love takes his game up a notch, the Packers are kind of mired in that good but not great category. And for a team that looks on paper to be a great team, that is the worst spot to be when it comes to underachievement. So, and I'm going to say this because the standards are high in Green Bay. I've been a part of those teams up there. I was a part of a team that eventually went on to a Super Bowl. So the standard is crazy high. I remember seeing what the standard is when Brett Favre was in the midst of his 3 MVP run when I was there. We've seen Aaron Rodgers win 4 MVPs. The expectation at quarterback is to deliver gold jacket quality performance. Jordan Love hasn't done that. And at a time where the team is desperate, sitting at 5-3-1, hoping to surpass the Detroit Lions and others to the top of the division, but really the top of the NFC, they need Jordan Love to play at that level. So no disrespect to Jordan Love, but in a make-or-break year for this team, they need Jordan Love to take his game up a notch, and we'll see if he can get it done. Let's see, because we're going to have to revisit it, because that is going to be the talk of the town, the buzz of the league, the last half of the season. Are the Green Bay Packers worthy of going and being a title contender? And is Jordan Love really that guy? Come back, Bucky Brooks Show. We'll talk all about it. That was the Bucky Brooks Show put on by FanDuel Sportsbook. Until next time, I'm out.